Hey, this is Dr. Emil Tompkins from the Beyond Pain Relief podcast, and today we're going to be talking about scoliosis. So, jump on in.
You are listening to the Beyond the Pain podcast, where Dr. Emil Tompkins and his guests guide you through the latest techniques to relieve your pain and learn how to fuel, move, and think for lifetime wellness.
All right, it's Dr. Emil Tompkins, and today we're going to talk about scoliosis. And the reason why is as a chiropractor, we take care of lots and lots of people with scoliosis. In fact, I have a scoliosis myself, and I did not realize it. I was an active kid. I did all sorts of things, played in sports whenever I had the opportunity to. I wouldn't necessarily call myself super athletic, but I was an incredibly active kid. And it wasn't actually until I went to chiropractic college where I had some x-rays of my spine, and we looked at it, and they showed me a picture of my spine, and I saw this incredibly curved looking thing, and I thought, that cannot be. I thought, who is that guy? Because that guy is not me. And they showed me my pictures, and they said, well, no, that actually is you. And I still wasn't 100% sure I believed them because, again, I was young, I was healthy, I was pretty fit, and didn't really have a whole lot of issue with pain or anything like that. And so that was a little bit of a struggle for me early on. But I did have that scoliosis. It was real. It is real, and it's something that because of my activity, I'm really thankful that I've done that, because I could have had a lot more problem as a result of it. Was even predicted a long time ago in chiropractic college that you are going to have these major issues in your spine, and I basically told them that no, it's one of the things that I'm going to get out of while being here is how to make sure, number one, that doesn't happen to me, and how I can help ensure that it doesn't happen to other people. So let's talk about scoliosis. Why does it even happen? Unfortunately, most people don't know exactly why scoliosis happens or doesn't. It's generally idiopathic, which means we have no idea why scoliosis happens. And there are a couple of different thoughts or hypotheses or reasons why it can happen. It generally happens in kids, happens when you're between the ages of 8 and 12. It can happen if you have an injury that causes some kind of imbalance in your spine and your body goes through a growth spurt, and then that growth spurt then creates an issue where your spine starts to grow around that injury, and we then start to have curvature. There are some other genetic things that happen in the spine where a vertebra decides to form differently than the other. And if that bone, which is normally a squarish shape, forms into more of a butterfly shape or almost a triangle shape, which is weird and not normal, but in some cases it happens. If that happens, then your spine will grow around that and create a curvature. So that's another thing that can happen. And then other times it's just we have no idea exactly why it happens, but it does. It runs in families. So if you have a scoliosis, chances are your parents, one of your parents is going to have a scoliosis, and chances are one of your children or more could have that scoliosis as well. And that's really important to know because it's a lot more difficult to take care of those kinds of things when we're adults than when we're kids. So if you have that kind of curvature in your spine, it really would be important for your family to get checked out. So the scoliosis is this curvature, this S curvature in your spine when you're looking at it straight on. So when you're looking at someone directly in front of you, if you think about what their spine should look like, it should be straight up and down, no curvature at all. But when you have a scoliosis, that curvature turns into sort of an S-shaped looking thing. That can vary from just a couple of degrees, a slight curvature, to 40, 50 degrees or more. And if they catch your scoliosis at 40 or 50 degrees when you're a child, that's a surgical thing. They go in there with rods, titanium rods, and straighten the spine. And those rods are there for the rest of your life. And it affects you in a lot of different ways. And we always want to be able to try to avoid that whenever we can. However, for some, you can't avoid that. Now, if it gets that bad, that's what happens. But most people, their curvature isn't that bad, and we don't have to think about surgery. But unfortunately, when you go to your doctor and they find that scoliosis, a lot of times that they tell you that there's not a lot that you can do about it. And in some ways that's true, depending on when you catch it. If we catch that scoliosis as an adult, there's no chance that's going to, or very, very minimal chance that really is going to straighten out. It just doesn't tend to. You've had it for many, many years. And so when we go from that kind of curvature over the course of your lifetime, 20, 30, 40 years or more, it's not going to straighten up in a few weeks, a few months, or a year or more of care. There are things that can improve it, but not completely straighten it. And so because medically there's not much they can do, they'll just say that there's nothing you can do. But there are things that can be done to help to train and strengthen that curvature. And we'll get into that in a second. We'll go into the life cycle of that curvature for just a moment here. The scoliosis goes through a particular life cycle in people that usually develops when we're kids, not when we're babies, but when we're kids, usually between 8 and 12. That's when it starts. That's usually when it grows the most. And so it's really important, big reason why we take care of families and kids. It's so important to make sure that we catch it then and work on making changes then, because if we can improve it, it actually is possible to improve it at that age, and it's definitely possible to keep it from getting worse at that age. So if we can catch that scoliosis early on, it really can make a difference, a really, really big difference. So that's step number one, is try to catch it early. Usually it grows the most during that early period when we're kids, and then it stays pretty stable, doesn't do a whole lot until we're in our 30s. And unfortunately, in our 30s, we start getting some pain, a little bit of pain and discomfort due to the scoliosis. It's constantly putting pressure on some kind of nerve that's traveling to some part of the body, whether it's muscles of the back or our digestive organ. I mean, it affects everything. So you want to make sure that we get things as balanced as much as we can. But we start to feel it in our 30s. When we get to our 50s, we then start to become a little unstable. Our muscles get weaker. That doesn't support the spine very well at all. And that spine starts to become unstable. When it becomes unstable, we start to have a lot more pain. We start to have a lot more instability, breathing issues, other health issues as a result of that scoliosis. You never, ever, ever want it to get that bad. And so there are certain steps that you can take. And if you take those steps, you will see changes, 1, in your curvature, and 2, in how you're feeling, and 3, hopefully the possibility of that never, ever developing into something that's a real major health problem. And so here are 3 steps that you can take to help improve the scoliosis in your spine. Number 1, you want to stay strong. That is a very important key. You have to stay strong. So you want to exercise. And when I say you want to exercise, honestly, you're pretty safe doing almost anything. Any exercise that you can do to keep your body strong is going to be helpful with the scoliosis. Probably the one thing that I'd be most worried about, 2 things. One is long periods of horseback riding can sometimes put a little too much pressure on the spine because of all the bouncing. And the other is running for long distances, like marathons. You get to a point where that running becomes less beneficial and more damaging on the body. And when you start running that far, that is what happens. So you want to make sure you're watching how much you're running. But in general, any other exercise is fine, and you want to stay strong, especially when we have that issue where when we're in our 50s, the spine starts to become unstable. If you're exercising, you can prevent that. You can stay strong enough so that those muscles can hold the spine where it needs to be to keep it from getting worse, and hopefully over time actually slightly improve it a little bit. So step number 1, stay strong. Your general exercises will do that. If you go to a chiropractor that specializes in dealing with scoliosis, they'll give you some very specifically tailored exercises for you to help keep those muscles really good and strong. So that's the next step. Number 2 is it kind of falls in the same category. It's don't be lazy. And when I say that, I'm not actually saying that you're lazy. There are very few truly lazy people in the world. But what I mean is sometimes we think when there's a problem in the body, the best thing we should do is rest it. The best thing we should do is take it easy. The best thing we should do is just not to do anything so that we don't create any more damage. But the problem with that is that the more rest that you have, especially during if that scoliosis is bothering you or if there's an injury, the more rest you're doing, the weaker those muscles are going to get. We've already mentioned that after about age 50, if you have that curvature, those muscles get weaker and weaker. We become more and more unstable. The more you rest, the weaker it's going to get as well, and the more problem you're going to see as a result of that. So definitely don't use rest as the cure for the pain of scoliosis. Activity is going to be that cure. Number 3 see your chiropractor. You definitely want to get adjusted because balancing the spine with chiropractic adjustments can make a difference in the amount of pressure that that scoliosis is putting on the body. There are certain specific ways to work on a person with scoliosis that's a little different than adjustments for the general population. So you want to make sure that the chiropractor you see is well versed in taking care of someone with scoliosis. Good pediatric chiropractors, there's certain scoliosis certifications that are important, but just ask your chiropractor if they're familiar with and comfortable taking care of someone who is dealing with that scoliosis. So those are your steps. Number 1, stay strong. Number 2, don't be lazy. Number 3, see your chiropractor. Follow those steps, and you will see a change in your curvature. You'll see a change in your scoliosis, and that's exciting to see. So I'm looking forward to that. Hey, I'm Dr. Emil Tompkins. I hope you have a great day. If you have any questions, you can always contact our office. There's going to be a link in the show notes. If you're here in Southern Arizona and you'd like to be evaluated, you can certainly go ahead and click that link. And if you are getting anything out of this podcast, the information that we give you here, I certainly hope that you would, 1, subscribe to the podcast so you'll get regular updates when they show up live. I hope that you will share this podcast with others. If you feel it will help someone else, share that podcast. That will make a difference in the number of people that come in contact with the information that we're giving. Now, if this information isn't helping you, don't share it, because we don't want to disseminate information that's not going to help people. But if you feel it's making a difference, I do ask that you share that with someone around you. You can make a difference in their lives and in their health, and that's really what we want to do, isn't it? I'm Dr. Emil Tompkins. I hope you have a great day, and we'll see you on the next episode.
You are listening to the Beyond the Pain podcast, where Dr. Emil Tompkins and his guests guide you through the latest techniques to relieve your pain and learn how to fuel, move, and think for lifetime wellness.